Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu, brothers and sisters. So the question is, can Islam be racist? Now, you know that during the last few weeks, I've put together a few videos in which I highlighted how racism is part and parcel of the ideology of capitalism. I also mentioned on quite a few occasions that only Islam can eradicate racism amongst mankind. So what I intend to do in this series of videos is to explain how Islam eradicates racism and why Islam cannot be racist. And I'll also discuss why Islam is the only bond which can truly unite mankind, and also why all other bonds are unable to do this. So in order to do this, brothers and sisters, it's very important that we begin by stating that man's aql, that man's mind, is not capable of producing a bond which can unite mankind, and that only the Creator, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala himself, is capable of doing this. So one may ask, why is man not capable? Well, if we were to observe mankind and its nature, we can see that man is a limited and selfish creature. There are weaknesses that are inherent in man, and we see that man is prone to error, which makes him unable to establish what is right and what is wrong. We can see that if man is to establish what is right and wrong, good and evil, from himself rather than being guided by the Creator, man will ultimately have to use his aql, his mind, and be guided by his whims and desires. This means that man will be inclined to establish what is right or good based on what he likes, based on what benefits him. And he will also establish what he thinks is bad or evil based on that which does not benefit him. So basically, how man decides what is good and bad, good and evil, will revolve around what benefits him, what serves his personal interests. And this is where the problem lies, brothers and sisters, as what one person thinks is good and bad will not be the same as what someone else decides. What I decide is good and bad may not be the same as what you think, right? So if everyone was to just follow their own whims and desires, then this would be a very selfish society and cause chaos, as we would only think about ourselves at the expense of others. So you can see that this way of thinking is destined to clash with others. Subhanallah, this clash is inevitable. And this is why, brothers and sisters, man cannot produce a bond, a system, an ideology which can unite mankind, because this would be based on his own interpretation of what is good and bad. Due to the limitations of man, we see that even his environment would play a great role in influencing him when he is establishing what is good and bad. Things like which country he was born in, which family he belongs to, what ideas the people around him carry, what ideas are prevalent in the society, and so on. All these factors would contribute to what he decides is in his interest and what isn't. He would have his bias. We would see that he would favor his family, his tribe, and his nation, those people close to him, over the interests of other people. And what would this breed? This would breed discrimination towards other people. This would breed tribalism. This would breed nationalism. And ultimately, this would breed racism. Subhanallah. And what would be the outcome? The world would be like a jungle. It would be like, survival of the fittest. This is because the clash between people would be inevitable, as mankind would never be able to agree on a universal good and bad. This would mean that those who have the power to enforce their interpretation of good and bad would subdue others to make sure that their personal interests are secured. The thing is, right, the reality is that people interact, people bond with others for a reason. Relationships in society are built on interests. People come together, people bond around a common interest which unites them. So for example, there is the patriotic bond. This bond only brings people together when there is a foreign aggression towards their land, and it ceases once this threat against their homeland has disappeared. So this is an emotional and temporary bond which can only unite people of the same land temporarily, so it's unable to unite mankind. Another example is the nationalistic bond. which is all about the domination of one people over another, which breeds discrimination and racism against the other. There are plenty of other examples, brothers and sisters. However, they all have one thing in common: they are all unfit to be a bond between mankind. So brothers and sisters, it must be noted that the only type of bond that can unite mankind is an ideological bond, and not emotional bonds such as patriotism or nationalism and so on. When it comes to the ideological bond, we see that people unite, they bond around an ideology, an aqidah, rather than bonding around a piece of land or a tribe, family or nation. So the affiliation amongst these people would be from an ideological point of view, due to the ideas that they carry, regardless of where they are from, what color they are, how wealthy they are, and so on. However, we see that even the ideologies of communism and capitalism have been unable to unite mankind, and this is even within the followers, the adherents of the same ideology. And the simple reason for this is because these ideologies have been made up by man. They emanate from the limited mind of man, and due to the reasons that I have already explained, they are doomed to fail in being a bond for all of mankind. In the next episode, brothers and sisters, I'll look to explain how Islam is the only bond which can indeed truly unite mankind, inshaAllah ta'ala. If you found this video beneficial, then please share it with your family and friends, and don't forget to like and subscribe to the Path to Revival YouTube channel. Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.